Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 14th Veterans Luncheon at Wentworth. So my name is Michael Siegel, and I'm the Director of Military Connected Services, and I'm proud to have retired from the U.S. Army in 2014. So at this time, I would ask you to please rise and remain standing for the posting of the colors by the Boston University Detachment 355 Air Force ROTC and Northeastern University Liberty Battalion Army ROTC. And we're going to be followed that by the singing of the national anthem by the College of Fenway's orchestra conductor, Danica Buckley, and the Pledge of Allegiance, led by retired U.S. Navy Captain Mike Price from Commodore Builders.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Mike. And Danica, that was absolutely lovely. So if we could just, one more, because that was, thank you. So if we could just remain standing, I would now like to invite Corey Ohonin, Deputy Director of Health and Community Services for the town of Easton, who is also a U.S. Air Force veteran, to provide the invocation.
Please bow your heads in prayer. Dear Lord, today we honor our veterans, worthy men and women who gave their best when they were called upon to serve and protect their country. We pray that you will bless them for their unselfish service in the continual struggle to preserve our freedoms, our safety, and our country's heritage for us all. Bless them abundantly for the hardships they have faced, for the sacrifices they made, for their many different contributions to America's victories over tyranny and oppression. We respect them, we thank them, we honor them, and we are proud of them. We pray that you will watch over these special people and bless them with peace and happiness.
Thank you very much, Deputy Director Ohonin, and you may have a seat now. I would now like to call your attention to the table at the front of the auditorium, where we're going to conduct a remembrance rite for military personnel listed as prisoners of war or missing in action. And I would like to thank the ROTC cadets who will be providing and leading us in this rite.
We call your attention to this small table, which occupies a place of dignity and honor. It is set for one, symbolizing the fact that members of our armed forces are missing from our ranks. They are referred to as POWs and MIAs. We call them comrades. They are unable to be with their loved ones and families, so we join together to pay humble tribute to them and to bear witness to their continued absence. The table is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his suppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single rose in the vase signifies the blood they may have shed in sacrifice to ensure freedom of our beloved United States of America. This rose also reminds us of the family and friends of our missing comrades who keep faith while awaiting their return. The red ribbon on the vase represents the red ribbons worn on the lapels of thousands who demand with unyielding determination a proper account of our comrades who are not among us. A slice of lemon on the plate reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the countless fallen tears of families as they wait. The glass is inverted, as they cannot toast with us at this time. The chair is empty, but reserved, as they are not here with us. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors to the arms of a grateful nation. The American flag reminds us that many of them may never return and have paid the ultimate and supreme sacrifice to ensure our freedom. Let us pray to the Supreme Commander that all of our comrades will soon be back within our ranks. Let us never forget their sacrifice. May God forever watch over them and protect them and their families.
Thank you so very much. It is now my distinct honor to invite Wentworth's president, Dr. Mark Thompson, to the podium. Dr. Thompson?
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us to honor and express our sincere gratitude to those who have served, those individuals who have previously dedicated their lives and worked to the armed services of the United States of America, and those who are protecting and serving their country today in countless ways to ensure our freedom and safety. On behalf of all of us at Wentworth Institute of Technology, I offer a sincere thank you to U.S. military veterans everywhere, but especially to the hundreds who have chosen to be part of the Wentworth family, our military-affiliated alumni, current students, faculty, and staff members. As many of you know, inclusive excellence is paramount among our endeavors here at Wentworth, and that entails fostering an inclusive environment for our military-connected community members. We're committed to providing the resources and support that will best help them on a path to future success when building their civilian lives. To ensure a viable home for our military-connected community members, we established an Office of Military-Connected Services and hired our first director dedicated to the military community, Michael Siegel. And I think Michael is doing a tremendous job, and I think he deserves a round of applause. We've also opened a dedicated Veterans Lounge on campus, providing an informal space where these community members can gather and forge bonds of friendship. After lunch, you'll hear more from Michael, as well as other decorated military veterans and personnel about their efforts to engage our community. You'll hear from Air Force Colonel and Wentworth Class of 1987 alumnus, David J. Johnson, and our student speaker, U.S. Marine Gregory Lovejoy, Construction Management Class of 2022. From all of us here at Wentworth, recognizing the debt that we owe to our veterans is a lifelong mission, an obligation, and a privilege. We're committed to ensuring we actively and thoughtfully support our military-connected community and we are grateful to the partners that help us achieve this important work. We're particularly grateful for the support of our corporate partners who support our military-connected populations with co-op positions and employment opportunities, including Commodore Builders, today's gold sponsor. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank our Colleges of the Fenway partners for joining us today to honor the veterans from all of our respective institutions. We're also grateful to the donors to Wentworth who offer scholarships and other financial support. I want to recognize John Magnarelli and Sandy Pascal, a longtime former staff member who are here with us today, for their support of the John Heinstadt Memorial Scholarship named in honor of the Institute's former CFO, who established this luncheon, and I want to congratulate this year's John Heinstadt Memorial Scholarship recipient, Ronnie Kataka. And we're grateful for the guidance and leadership provided by countless individuals, including proud alumnus and university advisor, my friend Marty Geyer and his wife Kimberly, who are here with us today. Marty, could you wave to the crowd? Marty's class of 1964. I'm not sure you wanted me to share that, Marty, but I just did. To all the veterans gathered here today, I thank you deeply for your service, and I want to also share my appreciation to all of you who are gathered here today to honor our veterans. Thank you.
You know, Wentworth has a really proud tradition of the military. You know, from World War I, the United States Army used Wentworth as a training place. Even just outside here, they use it to practice digging trenches. In World War II, the U.S. Navy came here as a formal training school for Signal Corps and other machining work. So there's a wonderful tradition that's carrying on today of Wentworth and the military. You know, I can also look at the efforts of our faculty and staff, even others, before we established the Office of Military Connected Services. For example, the excellent work that Professor Gloria Monahan and Director Brian Quigley, who are both with us today, if you could do a quick wave. Now, they provided a lot of support for our students prior to my appointment, and that was critical in supporting our students, the club, and getting the ball rolling on creating the Military Connected Services Lounge, which I'm so grateful as well. Made my job a little easier starting also. But I'm also excited for the future as we continue to enhance our support for the military. We're now looking on improving on the data collection of our military community so that we can better understand our demographics, and which in turn will lead to more purposeful and targeted programming. I'm also excited to announce that we received a grant from the Churbick Foundation, which will allow us to preserve the history of our military-connected community through collections of related materials, as well as conducting an oral history program to gather our stories and preserve them for future generations. I'm also very pleased to now turn the podium over to Gregory Lovejoy, a senior majoring in construction management and a veteran of the United States Marine Corps from 2011 to 2015. Thank you, Gregory.
Thank you, Director Siegel, and good afternoon, everyone. I would like to express my gratitude to the Wentworth community for putting together and supporting this event to honor our veterans, including our guest speaker, Colonel Johnson, for being here with us today, Wentworth Military Connected Services, and to our sponsor. It is truly an honor to be here to speak on behalf of the student veteran population here at Wentworth. Although we may have all served in different branches, conflicts, and duty stations, we share a common bond in our service to this country. No matter how many years you have served, regardless of your rank upon separation from the military, we all encounter similar adversities upon re-entry into civilian life. Finding task and purpose once again can be a daunting challenge. Choosing Wentworth to continue my education in the field of construction management became my task, and supporting my family remained my purpose. And although my journey here today was not an easy endeavor, I am proud of the road less traveled which has brought me here, and I am proud of all of my accomplishments along the way. Having battled with mental health and physical disabilities, I learned quickly to accept that reaching out for help was not a sign of weakness, but it was a sign of strength. Wentworth played a large role in my recovery and reintegration to civilian life by providing cost-free counseling services at the Center of Wellness. Becoming a father, a full-time student, an employee meant money was tight and time was limited. So when it came time to seek professional help closer to home, Wentworth generously provided professional references and covered my medical copays. When it came to my academic accommodations, my professors always ensured I had the tools at my disposal to achieve success, even when allowing my daughter, my beautiful daughter, Raylan, wave, to sit on some of my classes. When a challenge presented itself to my academic success, Wentworth was there to provide tutoring, mentoring, and guidance to help me overcome it. The Marine Corps taught me perseverance in adapting to change, and in a world that has changed seemingly overnight, I am thankful and humbled to have learned these life lessons that would benefit me in my pursuance of my degree. Without the structure that the military provides, one can feel lost navigating this world without a brother or sister in arms there to help guide you. I am very proud of the veteran community here at Wentworth and colleges of the Fenway. The camaraderie and brotherhood that is fostered within this tight-knit community has given me my bearings once again. I would like to thank each and every one of you for coming out this afternoon to show your support for our military-connected community. And to continue this endeavor, I encourage all of you to call on a fellow service member or loved one you served with this week to check in and open a conversation. Outreach can provide support and save lives. I am also proud to lead the effort to raise funds for our Wentworth Military Society Student Club to attend the National Student Veterans of America Conference in Orlando, Florida this coming January. This fundraising will help fund this trip and other camaraderie-building events for our military-connected community. I hope you all enjoy your Veterans Day. Thank you to all our military-connected members for your service to this country. And to those of you still on your journey to serve, I wish you the best in your future endeavors. Thank you, and Semper Fidelis.
Thank you so much, Gregory. Those were inspiring and absolutely wonderful words. It is now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Colonel David Johnson. Colonel Johnson received both an Associates of Engineering degree and a Bachelor of Science degree in Electronic Engineering Technology in 1985 and 1987 from Wentworth. He entered the United States Air Force in 1989 and has served in a variety of operational training and staff assignments at the squadron, wing, major command, and combatant command levels. He is a master air battle manager with 7 combat qualifications and 4 weapon systems. He has commanded both airborne and ground air control squadrons. Colonel Johnson also received the Wentworth Alumni Association Award in 2020 for outstanding alumni leadership. Colonel Johnson.
Good afternoon, President Thompson and Commodore Builders. Thank you for putting on this great event. I really appreciate that. Distinguished guests, faculty, staff, students, and fellow alumni, I'm truly honored that you asked me here to join you for the 102nd Armistice Day. I know that Gregory and I are humbled to speak to you today as representatives of the legions of veterans who have and continue to defend our great nation. I also believe and know for a fact we are not alone in this crowd. So I invite all the veterans with us today to please stand to be recognized. Thank you for your service. And thank you everyone else for coming out today to help celebrate Veterans Day. When I asked Michael as this was coming up what I should talk about, I think I scared him because I was talking about things like Air Force AI, and the Chinese threat and all the other things we hear about. And he said, well, those are good, but might I recommend Wentworth experiences and maybe how they influenced you instead? And I kind of got that. No one wants to hear any more about that other stuff. So, when I came on campus this morning, got here a couple minutes early, the truth is, I was thinking about what I'm going to talk about. And with apologies to the faculty that are here today, it isn't fiber optics. It definitely isn't DiffyQs or physics. Truthfully, as I would imagine it is for all of you in this crowd, it was the friends that I made at Wentworth that came to mind first. So this is only my second time on campus in the last 34 years. And that's a life spent on the road, as you can possibly imagine. So when I arrived on campus, though, the first thing I wanted to do was head for the basement of Beatty Hall, which, by the way, has changed considerably. But I was heading there because I wanted to have a cup of coffee with Dermot and Mark and Ira and Chris. This group of friends, we met on the first week we were here, and you could not imagine a different group of 5 guys. Truth is, we were from different towns, different high school experiences, different races, different churches, different family situations, different economic situations, and every one of us had a different dream. And I'm not quite sure if it was the terror that was Professor Bork's circuit theory class, or if it was just a fear of being alone, but we kind of coalesced into a group of 5. So we met every morning for coffee. We helped each other through all those classes. We listened to each other gripe about our girlfriends and our families. And we celebrated our wins, those occasional A's that came down, and those occasional losses, which we really don't need to talk about. And the truth is, the beer and the pizza at the one guy's place on campus, that was a regular occurrence too. Truthfully, I learned more from that group of guys than any class I took at school. And as many of you know, it's those relationships that prepared me for my future work, both in the Air Force and in the civilian world. It was that relaxed, non-judgmental, it was judgmental, but it was in a friendly, joking kind of way, that really taught me what relationships were about. They were all different for me and my family, but with the same problems, humor, capacity to understand as myself. I know it's cliche, but as most of you in this audience would agree, it's relationships which really matter the most in work and in life. And it was this group of friends that brought me to that next level of understanding relationships. So besides my friends, when I recall Wentworth to my other friends now, I inevitably tell stories about professors. So 2 come to mind. I actually already mentioned one. He was terrifying. Professor Kenneth Bork. Now, why did he terrify me? This is a guy that would do calculus in his head. He would draw it up on the board, he'd draw an arrow and say, and we do the math in our head and we come up with x equals 4. For anyone who took them, you remember those days. And if it wasn't for the curve, I don't think any of us would have survived his classes. But after 4 years of torture, and I might add assignment as my senior project advisor, I learned that his tactics and his style had made me a better engineer. I don't personally use his style, but I recognize that style even today in many of my colleagues. And it's made me a better leader because I recognize that style. So not only did he make me a better engineer, but he made me a better leader as well. The other professor that comes to mind is Professor Coughlin. And I might imagine, Professor Coughlin, by the way, was also a veteran, World War II Navy pilot. Professor Coughlin talked a lot about electrical engineering, but that's not really what I remember when I think about him. I think about his contempt for unnecessary rules. We would roll into lab, and he'd light a cigarette, and a lab tech would run over. You can't smoke in here, Professor. This isn't a cigarette. This is a test instrument. He'd walk over and throw it on an IC chip, and you'd watch the oscilloscope go nuts, and he'd say, see, I'm using that. And he'd get the laugh out of the students and everything. But most importantly for me is afterwards, he'd go back to class, and we'd be all laughing about it, and he would explain why he thought certain rules were unimportant and why they weren't. Now, what did I benefit from that? The truth is, what I got out of that is you can't follow rules arbitrarily necessarily. So from a leadership perspective, what it's done is it's reminded me when I hit those frustrations with work to think about where the rule came from. But it's also, from a leadership perspective, it's reminded me to explain my reasoning when I have the time to do that to my team. So I took a lot away from that. And believe it or not, one other thing I tell a lot about in Wentworth is lab time. Now, why do I talk about lab time? Well, the truth is, quick story, I'm at South Station and I bump into a Northeastern student. If there's any in the room, I apologize for this one. And it was another double E student. And I'm fiddling around in my pockets and I pull out a resistor. And he's like, well, what's that? And I looked at it and I said, I must have forgot to return this to the crib. And he said, no, not why. What is it? I said, oh, it's a resistor. He says, oh, I know what a resistor is, but I've only talked about it in theory. I actually never seen the device that turns the theory into practice. And what Wentworth Labs allowed us to do is to realize that in truth, the theory never matches real life. We would sit down in class, we'd write up our project, we'd walk down the hall, and then we'd find out it didn't work. And then when they added things like, this is how much money you have to spend, this is how much real estate you have, this is how much cooling you have, you'd realize your theory went out the window immediately. And lab, I've used those lessons quite a bit as I develop weapon systems for the Air Force. The other important lesson I took away from lab was it's okay to fail. And at least in the Air Force, and I'm assuming in industry, people are scared to death of failing now. And they just don't want to lose the money, they don't want the press that goes along with that. But what lab taught us was, hey, it's not going to work every time. And as my senior project, weeks and weeks trying to get that stupid circuit to work, I realized that I learned a whole lot more from that failure than I learned from success. Because if it worked the first time, I don't really know if it's always going to work. But when it failed, I knew it failed and I had to figure out why. What did I take away from that? When my team fails at something, I realized they were thinking big, and as long as they learned something from that failure, that was time and resources well spent. And I actually think we need a little bit more failure in the US today. So the last thing I tend to generally talk about, what's really unique for Wentworth for me, is the co-op program. And I co-opted for both my semesters with Mass Electric. I was hired for my drafting and computer integration skills, but they let me go out in the field as a field engineer. And one memory really comes to mind. Big snowstorm, power's out all over Foxborough for Gregory there. So I'm out my field engineering truck with the experienced linemen, and we go over to the substation, and they're like, okay, sir, time to throw the switch. Sir, I'm 19 years old, 20 years old, and these guys are all 40s and 50s and doing this their whole lives. And they're back there with these grins on their face, and it's like, you need to restore the feeder, sir. I said, how much current's going through this? They said, well, momentarily, not more than a couple thousand amps. Oh, okay, and I'm putting on these rubber gloves, and I'm terrified out of my mind. So I threw that switch, power comes back up, feeder goes down there, and those couple neighborhoods restored the power. So I'm elated. But more importantly, I look back at all those experienced engineers, those linemen, and you can see it in their face, you've gained a little respect from them. And I really appreciated that particular lesson. Co-op today was fairly common. But co-op 35 years ago was not. Wentworth was one of the few schools that actually had a co-op or an intern program, and it was required. And I benefited a lot from that. The Air Force has learned its lesson. It's come about with its own internship program now called SkillBridge. And what SkillBridge does for now is we let our airmen leave the Air Force 6 months early. They keep their full salary and their full benefits for that 6 months. They go out to industry, something they might be interested in. They get a job with that industry. They don't get paid by the industry itself, but they continue to draw their Air Force salary for that 6 months. Most of the time, the veteran picked properly, they were interested, and they learned something from that 6 months, and they would go on. Occasionally, though, and it happened to a couple of my airmen, what they thought was a great job didn't end up being a great job. So it gave them that 6 months to try something out, and it's a win-win. Industry gets someone for 6 months for free, and the veteran gets to try out a job they think they might be interested in. Which brings me to the last topic today is I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about the airmen that I know that are leaving the Air Force today. These young men and women aren't really what you see all the time in popular media. The truth is, today's veterans are well-adjusted, highly trained, motivated, and most importantly, experienced leaders. They've received years of technical training, and they've gone on to perform jobs that require them to make critical decisions and innovative solutions, and most often under austere and very stressful conditions. They've been given the authority and the responsibility to perform vital missions, and they've been proven in those missions. And in my mind, even more importantly, they've seen distant parts of our world, which in many times have given them a unique understanding and appreciation for what is the United States experiment. I'll close my remarks this afternoon, by thanking you again for holding this event to celebrate our veterans. I hope you have a wonderful Veterans Day next week, and I hope you can find a couple minutes on that day as well to remember the men and women who guarantee our freedoms today. May God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you.